Are you taking notice of everything that's going on around you right now? Today I want to talk about the idea of our minds and how we can actually learn how to change the way our mind filters the things that come into our lives. Now, I've read a bunch of articles on the topic. A lot of brain researchers and scientists talk about how basically at any given time there's as many as 100 trillion bits of information or some kind of massive number like that, but let's say 100 trillion bits of information coming at us, coming into our mind at any given time. But we can only consciously process a small percentage of these things. So think about the idea of, let's say you're at a boardroom and you're talking to somebody, but it's a busy boardroom, there's lots of people around, and then suddenly across the room you hear your name called. You can actually divert all of your attention to your name because that's important to you. Well, that's part of your brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system. And basically what it does is it filters out information that you have previously deemed to be important. Now, it is kind of technical and scientific and all of that, but it actually has quite a bit of practical application in our lives. And what I hope to do here is simplify it for you and give you some ideas as to how you can use it and start seeing a few more opportunities in your life. So think about this, right? We got our dude here, the little stick man, and at any given time we've got all this information coming in, and this information could be anything, right? Like right now, for example, you're focusing on me in this video, but if I tell you to stop and pay attention to the sensations in, let's say, your toes, right? You can actually now notice that. You may not have noticed that 2 seconds ago, but as soon as I told you to notice it, you noticed it, right? So that could just be one little piece of information that was always coming in, but you just happen to tune into that. I'm talking to you right now, and I can tune into the buzzing sound that these lights make, and with just a fraction of a second switch in awareness, I'm there and I'm focused on it now. The problem is that we always have this information coming in, and our filters are automatically kicking in, usually without us even knowing it, because we've previously programmed ourselves to filter out information. So how can you actually change the filters? I want to talk about that. So basically, when it comes to changing these filters or noticing new things in your life, think about times that it's happened to you in the past. I always use the example of if you buy a new car and you start driving it around, you suddenly start noticing that car everywhere. And if you hadn't driven that kind of car before, you probably didn't notice it before. So you start to notice things because you're now tuned into that. You're on that frequency. Right now, like we could turn on a radio and be on one station, and I don't know any of the music going on any of the other stations until I switch the frequency. So all these things happen, they're all happening at the same time, but it's just a matter of where we direct our focus, our attention, our energy, and so on. So how do you use this? Well, I want to talk about 3 things that I've used that I know work and I hope will work for you. So number 1 is you can actually change or alter the sensory input that you direct into your mind. So this could be really simple. This could be stuff like writing down and reading your goals to yourself every day. Constantly reminding yourself consciously of what it is you're trying to achieve on any level of life. It could be financially, physically, emotionally, whatever, any level of life. But constantly reminding yourself of what that is. One thing I like to do, I actually have verbal or affirmations that I read to myself. I recorded them on my computer, and I'll just stick them onto my headphones while I work on a pretty low volume. But I kind of like to hear myself repeating what it is I'm trying to achieve over and over again. It's a way that I can kind of consciously take notice of the things I'm trying to do. So that's one. Just give yourself sensory overload of the things you're trying to do. Second one is to become an inverse paranoid. It's kind of a weird term, right? Well, I heard this term described by Jack Canfield once by something that his mentor, W. Clement Stone, you've probably heard of, major insurance mogul. This guy, what he would do was he would basically consider himself an inverse paranoid. So he always imagined that the world was plotting to do him good. So no matter what happened, what came his way, what situation landed on his lap, as bad as it may seem to the average person, he would actually assume that the universe was plotting to do him good and that this thing happened for a reason and that there's an opportunity inside of it. So if you're in business, that happens all the time. Anytime you go out for a walk, there's things happening around you. You could probably tie it back to business if you become an inverse paranoid. So imagine that the world is plotting to do you good and see if that changes the way you notice things. The third one I want to talk about is actually be taking action in the direction of what it is you're trying to do. So seeking out what you want. So one way of doing this is, I do this all the time. One of my businesses right now is WordPress coaching, and I'm trying to always find people who need help with WordPress and building their business online using a WordPress blog. Well, I could go out to social networks and query or run searches for people that need WordPress help, or that are mad at WordPress, or just struggling with it, and I actually can take action and look for those people and talk to them and engage with them. And what happens is it sort of builds momentum. You start noticing more and more people asking these questions. You go on the street and start noticing people asking the questions. It can happen anywhere, but you can actually take that action, put yourself sort of in the stratosphere, in the environment of people who are talking about this kind of thing that you want to go after. So with those three things, you can probably right now start changing those filters in your mind, start changing that reticular activating system, and see what you start noticing and see how your results are going to be affected over time as you implement it.